Hi, I'm John Patrick Estolio. This is laboratory exercise number 6, Sscp. In this video, I'll be discussing security operations and administration domain, document and operate security controls. Different security controls have different intentions. When an organization layers these differing controls on top of one another, it becomes much harder to an attacker to circumvent them. You can use the following 5 controls. First, deterrent controls, to discourage an attacker from taking action. A login warning banner on a workstation or server is an example of an electronic deterrent. Lights and cameras on each of the building's entrances are examples of physical deterrents. Second is use preventative controls, to keep a bad thing from happening. Locked doors that keep people from entering without a badge or key are the equivalent of system and applications that only let users enter if they have valid credentials. Third is detective controls, to alert the defenders when something bad has happened. Logging and monitoring systems are perfect examples of detective controls. When an attacker attempts to log in with a bad password, a logging and monitoring system can record that action and notify a security administrator about that activity. Fourth is corrective controls, to counteract something bad after it happens. Backups are a fantastic corrective control, just as anyone who has been infected with ransomware. By restoring a copy of the data as it was before the ransomware attack, users are able to go about their business quickly. Last is compensating controls, when the original or ideal control isn't an option. If end users need local admin rights because a piece of business critical software requires those rights, then you can add logging and monitoring controls to make sure you're notified when a user attempts to use those rights for some other purpose. So our next topic is network and communication security domain. Operate and configure network-based security devices. A router is a network device that analyzes network traffic and determines the best path to get that traffic to its destination. A switch is a network device that performs similar function, although it's not as smart or complex as a router. While both devices are crucial to network operations, neither device is really a network security device. So one of the most common network security devices is a firewall. This device sits between multiple network segments, acting like a traffic cop when data attempts to travel from one network to another. The firewall checks its rules to determine whether or not the action is permitted. If so, the device allows the traffic to pass through to its destination. If not, the device rejects the traffic and prohibits that activity. In both cases, an administration may configure the firewall to log these attempts. Rejected traffic is often an indicator of an error, or possibly an attack, while permitted traffic may be useful during security incident response activities and forensics investigations. Next is a proxy. Proxy intercepts network traffic between networks, often to expose certain systems or applications to authorize users without exposing everything on the more secure network. For example, you may have an application server on the internal network that you want external users to access. So you could configure a proxy to only allow certain services like HTTP or HTTPS while changing the IP address of the internal server. So why would you change the IP address? Because you don't want an attacker to know your internal IP address scheme. An attacker with that knowledge could identify potential targets for an attack, as well as navigate the internal network more quickly, reducing the likelihood that your logging and monitoring controls might detect the attack activity. It's also worth noting that a number of organizations favor proxies over VPN. A properly implemented proxy is easier to deploy, easier to maintain, and arguably more secure than a VPN. So next, there is a two types of additional network and security devices. Worth noting are Network Intrusion Detection System or NIDS and Network Intrusion Prevention Devices or NIPS. Both devices monitor network traffic for potential malicious activity, but they respond differently. A NIDS device will log an event and/or alert an administrator, but it won't do anything to interfere with the traffic. A NIPS device will be more aggressive, automatically taking action to contain a potential threat. So take note that an Sscp should have an understanding of an organization's overall network architecture in order to better determine where to deploy network security devices and how those devices must be configured. So here is the references. Thank you for watching.